Hello, and welcome to the Yoga Teachers Talking Yoga podcast. Today, my guest is Sarah Manning, founder of Sarah Manning Yoga, and has practiced yoga in Singapore, China, and Australia. Described by her students as a natural teacher, Sarah combines intuitive yoga and meditation expertise with Chinese practices such as Qi Gong and acupuncture. She offers fertility and prenatal workshops, along with her own developed techniques such as meditation in motion for women, and we'll touch on some of that today. She's trained teachers in pre and postnatal yoga, back care, as well as yin yoga, as well as the more traditional hatha yoga methods, and was linked with the IYTA. Sarah has already been mentioned in this podcast series as a source of inspiration to some of our previous guests, and I'm sure after today you'll understand why. Her storied yoga career spans 3 decades and to this day remains a prolific teacher and guide. Today, she joins me online from her home in Singapore. Sarah, it's my privilege to welcome you to the Yoga Teachers Talking Yoga podcast. Good afternoon.
Hello, hi, and I am thrilled to have the chance to talk about things that I love. So thank you for giving me the opportunity.
Absolute pleasure of mine, and thank you for accepting the invitation. Before we get to this, some of the formative sides of your story, and we're definitely going to do that. We're going to dive into that. I noticed on your website that it states nurture, educate, empower. What do those words mean to you, and how do they resonate within and develop you into the teacher you've become?
Oh, yeah, well, they summarize my whole approach. To me, yoga is a service to others. And so if I can, it doesn't matter who it is, it could be the nutter on the bus, actually. My husband despairs. But nurture and support and guide and help is kind of my middle name, I guess. But in my opinion, there's no point in helping if you then don't empower. If you don't, it's a bit like that phrase, don't give people fish, teach them how to fish. And I believe in yoga, I really want people to tune into their own story, their own body, their own intuition, because that's where the magic lies for their practice. And I guess that comes from the very first teacher who actually inspired me to become a teacher. So she was an American. She was preparing for a yogi from America to visit Japan at the time. Her name was Bhumi, real name Harriet Russell. And this was part of Kripalu, the biggest ashram at the time. This is in the 1990, I guess. And basically, she believed as a woman, first of all, so it comes down to being a woman in a man's environment, which really yoga was, and said, no, notice what's going on for you today and make it yours. And so my mission is to give that invitation, to give you permission to, if you want to just lie down on your mat and just put your feet up and just listen to my voice. And if that is what nurturing means to you today, then that's what it needs to be.
Mm.
So empowering means I give you permission to lie on that mat and not do the handstands and backflips that everyone else is doing.
The facilitating nature and the connectedness of women sharing the space together and feeling safe and accepted really then enables that empowerment. Oh, maybe it provides empowerment for them to then start realizing their journey. Have I got that right?
Totally. Well, I think it comes down to women do have slightly different needs to what was historically a male practice. And as you know, as I've gone on my journey, we're starting to get the right vocabulary, which can then honor those needs. So whether it's to do with cyclic mapping, you know, in your monthly cycle, when you are menstruating, well, we had very clear instructions. You shouldn't do A, B, and C, mostly inversions. Um, but it's so much more than that, because energetically, it's where we go inward.
Mm.
It's where we tap, it's where we go to that red tent and we just sit with other women and sit with our intuition and notice, chart our path from that moment. So yeah, absolutely, giving women permission to be intuitive. And I think it comes down to one of my pet subjects is we have and I use the Chinese terms. They use the term yang and
Mm.
yin.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay, and yang is very active. It's goal orientated. It's achievement focused. I am working towards enlightenment, and I'm going to have the discipline to do it this way. And I'm going to judge, and I'm going to, yeah, it's all about calculating and judging. Very macho way of looking at life. And then we have the going inward and being creative and intuitive, and it's softer, darker, more inward. And ultimately, in the middle, there is this knife edge precision of the balance of both. And when we hit that knife edge, that's when magic happens. And I would say every yoga pose is the same thing. We have this structure, we have the grounded, we have the connection with the earth and the activation, providing that safe stability within the pose. And then all of a sudden, we get this invitation to just open and allow and let the heart guide the process. And to me, that's when we hit the magic within an asana,
Mm.
where we have the balance between the structure and the opening.
Absolutely.
And if we can draw our students to that awareness within a pose, then it is possible to take that out into our daily lives. And very often for women, our nurturing path has taught us to just keep giving and giving and giving and
Mm.
nurturing and looking after everybody else's needs.
And loading that into your own system.
Whereas, so that's the very yin way of
Mm.
living. But to find that sense of joy, we also need to bring in those boundaries and the structure into our lives where we're saying, no, I can't do that today. And, you know, just carving out and doing a more macho approach and bringing balance to the two. And it's not just for women, because guys also, they also need to have balance. So they might have this big judgmental, goal orientated madness going on. But at some point, finding that time for peace in the mind and allowing creativity
Mm.
and inspiration to come in,
Mm.
that's when they too will find that sense of joy.
Is that just the course of time and the experience you gain, or did you have an epiphany moment? If we could just
I think it comes
describe
from
this for me.
being a female engineer in a man's world. Then being so you know, although I had an engineering background, I then got married to a very ambitious, strong-minded husband. And so it became his career path that drove our movement from pillar to post, which disempowered my career, obviously. And as I then stepped into a parenting role, and he was still chasing that very, very adventurous, exciting career, so in order for there to be balance in our home, we had this very strong yang energy. And so my role became even more the foundation and the structure, so that my children were also able to feel safe and explore and do what they needed to do. Whereas, it would have been so tempting to add to the yang energy in our home and cause a whole load of disturbance and stress within the
Mm.
home.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, learning to find that balance, and of course, now that my children have flown, and husbands are not quite as career focused when they're in their 60s, thankfully, and so now I'm actually experiencing this opportunity to find my time and my space to be to put boundaries there, and to judge and keep growing and having a path.
Mm.
So yes,
Good on you.
it's been a bit of a life journey, really.
And so the courses and the techniques that you're developing now, and there was the one here that was we mentioned a bit before, the meditation in motion for women. Is that a relatively new concept for you, or is it something you always had percolating? Oh, I'll do that one day, or how'd that come
Okay,
about?
so meditation in motion.
Exciting.
Meditation in motion actually originates from Kripalu, right back at the beginning. And so Yogi Amrit Desai was recognized as a yogi through his meditation in motion. And what Yogi Amrit Desai, his path had been, first of all, he learnt what all of these asanas felt like, and practiced lots and lots for years. And he achieved enlightenment by using his intuitive body, his intuitive mind, to decide which posture follows which posture in his practice of that day.
Mm.
So obviously it requires us to make a movement and then sit with it and then decide, well, what's the next movement? And so, you have this library of knowledge of how it feels in the body and in the mind and energetically. And so the intention is to be sufficiently quiet in the mind to be able to decide what comes next. So it's not actually mine at all. But what to me, it's part of the journey of recognizing how your body feels, recognizing how you feel emotionally, and that taps into your hormonal environment and what's going on in your body today, and deciding what is the right practice for you that will enable you to come off your mat feeling in that balance, on that groove, either uplifted or calmed down, depending on where you're at.
Mm-hmm.
And I think women are particularly well suited to that.
Yeah, definitely. In the connected, safe space that you create.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So if you actually look at the hormone symphony throughout a menstrual cycle, that communicates to you like a sixth sense of what you need. And so during the actual menstruation itself, going inward and quieter poses. So we're not doing standing balances, and we're
Mm.
not doing backflips and big opening. Very often there's aspects of pain related to menstruation. And so we kind of curl in and we want to apply warmth to the belly. We want to apply pressure to the belly. And so that's kind of what we would expect as a man looking in on a woman. But it's even more exciting than that, because when we are ovulating, we are ready to take lots of risks. I'm going to be flying, balancing on one hand. I'm going to be doing really amazing the Instagram pics. Well, that wouldn't normally happen any other time of my month.
Hmm.
And then as our hormones then again shift, we'll notice that we become more angry and more the heat in our body manifests. So that sort of anger pre-menstruation is again an aspect where we can use that to take us into postures which are vigorous and strong. So yeah, at every single day within a menstrual cycle feels different.
Hmm.
And then I'd like to add on to that each student. So this is a bit like the teachings of Descartes, who basically says every practice it fits the person, basically. And we start by working on the breath, and the breath is our access to our intuition. So every pose is guided by the breath in his work.
Mm.
And that to me is kind of very aligned to what I'm suggesting. And so if you've been up all night with a 2-year-old that's been, I don't know, unhappy, whatever, a baby that's teething, or your teenager has been out till after midnight, you're going to be coming to the mat in a very different aspect
Mm.
to your neighbor. And just having that permission to honor where you're at is just huge.
Hmm. And you're managing to achieve that through bigger classes and in-person classes as well as online, or?
Well, these days I don't teach so many
Right.
in-person classes because I travel so much.
Yeah.
But you're right. I think being pregnant when I did my IYTA teacher training meant that the very first group of students that I was teaching were all pregnant. It's you teach what you know best, right?
Hmm.
And so you have a class of maybe 12 students, and you've got some that are in second trimester and bouncing off the walls. And I tell you, you feel $1 million. You just got energy coming out through your ears. And then we've got those that have the back pain, and that they are really slow and really feeling their way through their body. And then we have those that are falling apart. They are due to deliver any moment. Their pelvis is completely unstable. And there are a lot of things they shouldn't do.
Yeah.
And then you've got those other students that have varicose veins, or they've got morning sickness, or, you've got all of these other ailments
Mm.
to kind of juggle. And so as a yoga teacher, I got into the habit of, for every pose, we would do something gentle, appropriate for everybody to start with. And it was classic IYTA. We do a
Mm.
vinyasa to say hello to the muscles, to prepare ourselves with that picture of how it's going to be. And so there were nearly always 3 things happening in my class at any one time. And they were all doing their own version
Mm.
of the pose. So taking a triangle pose, for instance, we would start, let's work with the most challenging student. Well, we have a bent knee, and we might have an elbow even on that knee. And it's a very simple, very structurally sound pose. And then we might have those that are not quite needing that, but they need to have a really strong support of that lower hand to get that opening of the chest. And then finally, those that are really flying, the hand comes off the leg, and they're working hard.
Mm.
So I guess I got into the habit of always giving 3 versions of the pose, and using it as the vinyasa walking through. So we would do each pose twice, and people would then choose which version they wanted to do, and also have the permission to go back if they needed it.
So, Sarah, how did it all begin for you?
Well, I guess I've already covered this in that I was living in Japan. I had struggled so hard. So I'd lived in four different countries within 8 years
You've
and
been in the
really only
Middle East.
managed to live the dream
Hmm.
for two of those. And the dream was to be a functioning, successful female engineer in a man's world. And it was not terribly satisfying. And there was an enormous amount of anger and frustration and feeling very lost as to, well, is this it? Am I really just the foundation of my husband's career? Is that as big as I become? Um, and yoga, the door kind of opened, and it was kind of like a sparkly staircase. It was just a sense of joy of coming to be me, to no longer not I didn't want to be just Steve's wife. I wanted to be Sarah Manning, and I needed an identity, and I needed something that I could be passionate about. And as it's turned out, yoga has so much depth
Mm.
and so much breadth that there's no end to the education opportunities and reflection that we can bring to this art. And so it has been a lifelong, joyful celebration,
Mm.
adventure, opening up this sense of joy in my life as and being me, and being able to say, "Oh, hello, I'm Sarah. I'm a yoga teacher," was really important, and it
Mhm.
just rescued me at a dark time, really.
Yeah, good on you. That's fantastic. And the sparkly staircase, and you continue to walk up the thing to this day.
Absolutely, absolutely. I don't stop. So one of my favorite teachers, and I know you're going to come to this, but I just want to show you Bernie Clark's latest book on prana. And I'm going, oh my God, this is amazing.
Wow.
And
I
all
get a
of the
copy of that.
research that he has put into his study of prana and chi, and just finding more ways of communicating my message to my students. So yeah, it never ends, does it?
That is marvelous. I'm going to put a link into the descriptions on this episode for people to be able to go and look that up. I
Yeah.
might go and buy it myself. I hadn't seen that come out. I love reading
Yeah, his book
Western
is
running.
I wouldn't say it's easy. If you want, I recommend, read a chapter and then just sort of sit on it and notice how so it's all about yoga history, the history of yoga and the different stages of philosophy in yoga. So it's not an easy story,
Hmm.
but woven into that is the story of energy, vital force, and what it meant in the different ages of the yoga history.
Pressing all
It's
my
an
buttons now.
it's yeah it's an ambitious story, an ambitious book.
Mm, absolutely. Oh, that's fantastic. I'll be definitely reading that. That's right up my alley. Sort of
Perfect.
prana, energy, vital force, all these words are just words I live by every day.
Mm.
Being and the engineer, I see postural movements and I see connectivity as geometrical aspects of reality. That it's a trikonasi you said before, triangle is a geometry of you interacting with your reality, with the environment around you and the energies therein, and they complement and they push and they give. The Qi Gong that you studied, and maybe Tai Chi and the Qi Gong perhaps, has an aspect of this ebb and flow and the yin and yang that's embedded with every movement,
Right.
and they're geometric.
Yes, absolutely. And then we add on even more when we start. So I think the other aspect of being as I've got a bit older, frankly, and the body doesn't want to do the handstands and backflips, it is natural to evolve into a curiosity
Mm.
about energy and the mind. So, it is a natural progression to move through the 8 limbs, progressively focusing more on the deeper layers. And so, teaching yin yoga, for instance, and the the Americans have this horrible word, which is rebound, which I don't like actually. But the concept is we stress the connective tissue in a particular path. And then we come out of the pose after about 5 minutes and then feel using the breath how energy is moving through the body now. And so the concept of freeing the movement of qi through the body is what we want you to to sort of feel and acknowledge. And then if we can then add on, so for instance, I often use the Qi Gong water breath, which of course is descending and cooling, and it's a perfect breath within a yin yoga pose because it's about descending and allowing gravity to do the work. And it's very simple. In through the nose is passive. Purse your lips and blow out
Uh,
softly and as slowly as you can. Some people call it the golden thread breath.
mhm.
And so in my Qigong, when I'm teaching breathing in the morning, we actually do these different breathing techniques and then feel, are we more grounded? Is there a sense of heaviness in the shoulders? And sometimes we will breathe and it's the fire breath. And so we're then looking for the sense of lift and the sense of elevation and the dryness within the body. So, we tap into how does the body feel is a constant question within my classes.
Mhm. And its place and its energy movement. And I love the way you use the Qigong. Katie Brown, of course, uses Qigong with her teaching as well.
Yep.
Thank you, Katie, for introducing me to Sarah for this interview. um, IYTA you mentioned, that was a formative time for you in your yoga teaching and yoga practice.
Absolutely. Love, love, love IYTA. I think all of us, every single trainee of their program, their life changed. Their practice completely changed.
Hmm.
Um, Phenomenal training over a whole year,
Yeah.
mentored and supported, challenged to not only hear the lecture, but then go away and read as wide as you could, and then formulate your own position on whether it was to do with the gunas or whether it was related to the anatomy of the bones or whatever it was.
Hmm.
Um, because it was done over a period of a year, it gave students the opportunity not just to receive information, but to then massage it and then speak their version of it. And I can see why IYTA stuck to their guns and said, I'm sorry, we cannot do 200-hour training in
Hmm.
that way. It just will completely destroy the magic.
Hmm.
And sticking to that authentic, this is the magic. This is what is making our teachers special.
Hmm.
Ultimately, it destroyed it.
Yeah.
Um, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. We were authentic to our beliefs, and there will always be a time when things grow and then
Mm-hmm.
diminish. And by perpetuating something that's just a cobbled together compromise, doesn't give the potential for the next growth to happen.
Absolutely. And something I just thought about, 8 limbs of yoga. We know what they are, but asana is such a developing engine and driving force for women, I'll say for now, to be able to go back to the niyama, their internal cells, and enhance it, mature that for their yama, their external interaction to be calmed and to be balanced. So instead of just going that way to samadhi, you're actually getting you're coming back and enveloping the whole thing through asana and through movement, and through this ability to generate awareness within yourself to then enrich this way. Is that okay to say it like that?
Totally agree with you. Yes. Our mission as yoga teachers is to develop actually all the layers as best we can in every pose. And so I'm also a yoga therapist, right? And we work a lot with the 5 layers, the koshas.
Koshas. Yep.
And so we have physical, energy, emotions, intellect, spirit. And so every yoga pose I teach, we start with an awareness of the physical body, and then we come more into the breath, and then sit with how we're feeling, and then maybe have a visualization or a pause, a bit of space, where we can start to explore that sense of celebration in the body.
Mm.
And so every class is trying to accomplish 5 things all at once.
Mm.
But you wanted to also reflect that back to our community and how we respond to the community. And I think this is something that is more about women naturally, intuitively, naturally. We are social beings.
Yeah.
Intuitively, naturally, we put the community first before our own needs. That is innate. That is what we have through our evolution learned helps us to thrive. And frankly, we could do with an awful lot more of that. So many of our young women today are living in this macho, I can do everything mode. And while we're desperately in need of a community, a village, particularly when it comes to parenting, parenting of young children, parenting of teenagers, we need to have that community also looking over our shoulder and watching our children and supporting them at the same time. So taking what we learn and on the mat and taking it out into the community is very important. Absolutely.
Mm.
And I would say that's innate in women to do that.
Well, women can be a real driving force in that regard, in terms of reforming the way a society is structured and the way it thinks and what's focusing on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
And maybe
I
we're
mean,
seeing some of that now.
the tragedy. We're not only going to. Can I just say one thing that's political, and then
By
I
all
will
means.
park it to one side, because the Margaret Thatcher female, who actually created a lot of the issues that we're now facing today. So whether it was Ronald Reagan or Margaret Thatcher, the idea that we are going to become more macho and competitive and judged, and we are not going to support the weaker ones in our society. We must only work on being competitive and getting ahead. that has had severe consequences on our society. And I'm grateful that we are now becoming a little bit more aware of the needs of the weaker members of our society that need our help. So yeah, even in society, we need that balance, you know, and I think when the balance goes off, our society suffers. And so through our yoga, maybe we can make a small difference to help our society come back to that sense of balance once again.
Maybe all that's still forming. Maybe it's the age of Aquarius. Who knows? Maybe it's just
Yes,
universal
yes.
balance.
Well, apologies. I've probably taken you slightly off track, but as I say, what I'm looking for is to bring that sense of harmony, that balance of yin and yang, from first of all on the mat and then out into the world, to being authentic individuals, and that is what is the biggest impact we can have on our society around us.
And I think
so I don't actually sit on street corners with a placard, I confess. And I don't stand on an orange box at Parliament Square either. No, speakers call, we lead by being authentic.
absolutely. And it was a hallmark of the IYTA again. I'll say that was authenticity, safety within the practice, but authenticity and bringing your own self out of your of its shell to let it be seen.
Shine,
So
shine. Let's go shiny, shall we?
Yeah, I think you've achieved that quite well. And a question, I think you've done that really well. One of the questions I ask is about what you get as a reward, what rewards you in your teaching. And I think you've answered that a few times. So I don't need to necessarily ask, but it's clear that the reward you have gotten from the work you do is just that, is giving this people this spark and this edge and this capability for a better life.
Yeah, absolutely. Lovely. Nicely put.
Thank you. We touched a little earlier on inspirations. We could go there now. You've already mentioned a teacher that you had was an inspiration for you. But who else inspired Sarah Manning in her yoga journey?
Well, so definitely Bernie Clark, because he's an engineer. And he also was a businessman, right? He would go out and he was selling engineering products. He's from Canada. And so his clarity and ability to crystallize things that were very complicated and very detailed was definitely an inspiration. And his following of all things engineering in terms of energy in the body has been an inspiration. And in fact, I met him in China. And so when he was teaching the yin yoga teacher training with me, he really only just brushed on the meridians of the body. It was a very soft sort of, we'll just notice that. But as a parting gift, I gave him this doll with all of the meridian lines on it. And together we've been pursuing this, the blending of engineering, the blending of Chinese, of Indian and Western science. That blending is fascinating.
Isn't that just?
Because we're taking language and concepts from 3 different places and then presenting what our body tells us as being our story, and an opportunity for students to explore it too and question too. So definitely Bernie continues to be an inspiration. I think Anne Nakoda, she is my mentor from IYTA teacher training days. So this is 30 years ago. She's been my steady mentor all these years. She's still here in Singapore. And she's Irish. And her ability, her discipline of practice is a real inspiration. And I aspire to be as dedicated as she is to the practice. So Anne, very, very special lady. And I think quite a few IYTA yoga teachers might remember the conference that we did in Singapore, and it was led very, very graciously by Anne Nakoda, and I was lucky to be part of her team.
Lovely.
And I think my third third and last inspiration, but there's lots more, but Mary Louise Parkinson is, I worked with Mary Louise when we were developing the pre and postnatal yoga teacher training for IYTA. And then she became president. And her enthusiasm for life and positivity is again an absolute inspiration. So yeah, and I of course still keep in touch with her as well.
Lovely. That's lovely. You've had some really strong inspirations there. Some that you learned from, but others you've got a sort of a shared interest and a passion with. I think Bernie Clark, for example, I'm sure I'm going to read that and want to go down that path myself with my own engineering. I just sitting here looking forward to doing that because it's something that's really within. But we have these forces within our lives that sort of shine lights, don't they? They turn switches on and they reveal, they open the door and say, why don't you go and look in that room and see what you'll learn out in there? And it's part of the I call it the tapestry that we have. We all we woven in, and we all have an opportunity to be a thread within it and share the story, don't we?
Yeah, definitely.
Mm.
Definitely.
That's lovely. When you were in Japan, you mentioned Japan earlier, at such a time when you were getting into what became a yoga business, how did those sorts of communities react to yoga? Was it an easy thing to do to start teaching there or elsewhere? Were you in Middle East or Australia, or how did it go
So,
about? What barriers to entry did you encounter? Was it an easy ride or?
so in Japan, I was merely a student, not a trained teacher
Mhm.
yet. And certainly at that time, the the community that was open to yoga would have been the expats, the foreigners living there. Um, so I was living in Singapore when I did my teacher training with IYTA. And I would say here in Singapore, the main barrier is Christianity.
Mm.
Here in Singapore, many of the locals are first generation Christians, and the churches here are very big and strong. And I suspect that first generation converts really need things to be very black and white. We also have to respect and honor the fact that we live in a society which is on the outskirts. There's an awful lot of superstition,
Mm.
particularly Malaysian and Indonesian energy
Mhm.
of curses and so
Mhm.
forth. So, they have a very black and white attitude. Whereas I come from the UK, we've been Christians for thousands of years,
Forever.
1,000 years.
Forever.
And
Hmm.
so, we've got particularly the Church of England, we kind of very open to interpretation. And I would say that IYTA gave me an opportunity to reflect back at my upbringing and increase my awareness of the spiritual. But what I'm seeing in Singapore and continue to see is this door closed, because those people are not ready to have a more open relationship
Threatened.
with their
Mhm.
religion.
Okay.
So that's my biggest problem here. China. So I lived 5 years in Shanghai. And actually, my time there was not really dedicated to yoga. It was dedicated to charitable projects. So I kind of took on a leadership role to support. So taking wealth and what we had to offer as very privileged people who were living there and supporting as many people as we could, whether it was building schools or channeling money to the building of a school, whether it was supporting orphanages or whatever. So I would say that in China at that time, there was no space for yoga within the local populace. They were in survival mode. Whereas within the expat community, yeah, there were people who needed to find their feet and find their authentic voice, and maybe through the support of the women's yoga that we offered, there was the potential there to support that learning. But so I would say that the yoga there was lesser. And my biggest projects in terms of yoga teaching have been in Australia, where I found tremendous enthusiasm and openness and questioning, and a really vibrant community.
It's a real, well, let's give it a go attitude, isn't it, down here? And let's just try that out and see what it's like. And
Yeah, and I think you're such a melting pot. And so there's no absolutes really. There's no black and white guidelines. It's just okay. There's this whole myriad of choices of pathways to follow.
Do you think the proliferation of online and all the classes online makes things easier? And we're having this conversation online, of course, but in two different countries. But do you think it diminishes the quality because it's so much more widespread now, or is it opportunity?
I have a very generous aspect to this. We are inviting all of our students to come down a path of awareness and open-heartedness by feeling totally grounded and safe and authentic in who they are. If we see that as being our mission, then inviting someone to take a baby step as opposed to a big stride is still of value. And so I would say that just a simple practice of honoring the body is going to change probably the food you eat that day. It's going to change what time you decide to go to bed. It's going to change the kind of reading material you choose, the films you watch, the people you spend time with. So we are servants to our student body. And frankly, looking at some of, well, let's take Australian women. Oh my goodness, so many of your Australian women, they run companies, they manage the home, they manage the kids, they also have parents with dementia, which somehow they also put into that equation. And, you know, I'm spending chunks of time working with these women because they have really nasty, uncomfortable menopause journeys. And I'm going, well, it's because you're not in balance. You are so in the yang domain. And I give you permission to come to the quietness of just lying on the mat and allow those tears to flow, which are your emotional release. And it could just be that. So one of the reasons I'm seeing so much of a growth in sound healing and sound bathing.
Yeah.
And that's just giving people permission to lie on the mat. And it's huge, right? So I think that if we can just give them a baby step, which draws them down that path. As your servant, I am grateful for what you've chosen, which is to spend maybe only half an hour with me online, and that's okay. You see, in yoga, we have the very yang forms of yoga, which say
Mm-hmm.
you must have this foot exactly like that.
Mm-hmm.
And you must have this activation, and you must have this corrective movement in your pelvis. And I am the right person to do this for you. So this very structured, judgmental style of yoga, it has to be done in person. But when you come to a more intuitive form of yoga, particularly yin yoga, we cheat vigorously. And the Singaporeans hate the word cheat, but it's basically you are honoring your needs.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
so, online, so obviously there are the safety concerns. And one of the things that IYTA was so big about was how do we make this safe? And so there are limits to what we can teach online for the number of students that are there in front of you. And so as a teacher teaching online, we have to make constant judgment calls, and we will therefore not be taking any of those students in a place which is going to cause risk. So we these online situations, there are safety risks, and therefore we will steer away from those arm balances and the more dramatic poses because they're not safe, and we can't see our students.
Mm-hmm.
So it does dramatically limit the choices of what we can teach. And as I say, even in a class situation, we might have a plan, but we actually choose to do something different because, so for instance, if I teach a yin class online, and I've got a pregnant student that keeps coming, and I'm going, pregnant? Your body's falling to bits, and you want to do yin? And I'm very twitchy. And so the whole class gets a very, very safe practice, which is geared around that one
Yeah.
student.
Yeah.
But she's not pregnant forever, and we will work around that. So,
Mm-hmm.
so,
Mm-hmm.
so yes, there are limitations to what we can teach online, but I really, as I say, I see it as an opportunity.
Absolutely fantastic. Yeah, I want to think it is too, and I'm hoping that over time you see a lot of these courses and these people taking on things that they continue to follow their curiosities and find out more and the reasoning behind it and what it can bring through to them, and then experience it and practice it and.
Yeah, so we like to think that just by working online to start with, this is a stepping stone.
Yeah,
And those people for whom it really resonates, they will seek out somebody that they can go to a deeper level with
they can.
in person.
Hmm. You talked about before in class, and if you're on a mat, you essentially just it's a practice for how you can then take all that into your everyday life. Isn't it? That's our goal, isn't it? To be able to have a serene aspect and countenance in all that we do, in all that we people we meet and interact with.
Yeah, yeah, definitely, definitely.
Really what we're trying to do.
Yeah, that's the goal, right? The end goal
That's the
is
end
to
goal.
have a society that actually likes each other, or it certainly gets on.
Can at least tolerate and get along with each
Yeah,
other. That's the
we
main
can put
thing.
up with everybody. We can cope. We are
Yeah.
centered. We are grounded, and we can just ride with the knocks.
what's happening with Sarah just now? You're offering courses, you're offering classes, you're doing
Yeah,
online.
well,
Mm-hmm.
the things that give me joy are teacher trainings, because I have fertile ground for lots of questions and lots of inquiry. So working with teachers or training instructors. These days, it tends to be more Qi Gong, where the interest is. So whether it is a yoga teacher. So one of the things that I've loved in my Qigong training is that, so we have the pranayam, which when we did IYTA had all of these alarm bells and safety concerns, and don't you dare try to lift the kundalini, whatever
Mm.
next. And this idea that we are playing with fire, which is true.
Absolutely.
However, we do want to draw our students in towards that knowledge and understanding. And I've found that the Qigong is a really soft, accessible practice, which is a stepping stone towards a pranayama understanding. So Qigong, basically, we start off by releasing all tension in neck and shoulders so that we do diaphragmatic breathing. To me, that's the beginning of every yoga class.
Absolutely.
I want to reduce tension in the neck and shoulders.
Yeah.
An understanding of diaphragmatic breathing is huge when it comes to healing. And then they have these wonderful soft practices where we have the bandhas, but they're not, that these are soft, and they enable us to play with the pauses and the kumbhakas in our pranayam, but it's guided by movement. So you breathe in and push your hands forwards, and then pause and take your arms overhead, and then sweep the arms and exhale. And it's a movement. It's graceful, and the breathing ratios. We're not sitting and counting.
Yeah.
We're moving the arms. So the Qigong has definitely, for me, been a way of getting my students looking at the power of the breath to help them in their daily lives. How do I become calm and grounded? How do I lift my energy? I'm so tired. I'm struggling with fatigue every day. Working on the energy body and how that has an impact so significantly on the mind and mental health. I do, as I say, I do more Qigong training to yoga teachers as well as the general public, because it's so accessible. It's very simple movements, simple concepts. But as with all arts, it takes a lifetime to master. Whether it's related to the pelvic lift, whether it's related to the throat lock at the appropriate time. These things are part of Qigong. It's not just wafting your arms about. And then taking your mind on the journey of they are the same thing. The spinal energy path is also part of their energy awareness. So some of their meditations are just super and useful as a yoga teacher, as well as I say, accessible to the general public. I'm doing yin yoga teacher training, which again is energy and ground-based and intuitive and lots of cheating. And I teach online. So my mission is to support women's wellness through all the life stages. So whether it's a teenager riding those hormonal chaotic, whether it's acne or whether it's pain in menstruation, whether it's to do with just feeling so lost as to who you are, and then all the way through fertility. The fertility journey was something I was very much involved with for the last 8 years, helping people who are struggling on their IVF journey or their natural conception journey. And then all of my life, I've worked with women who were pregnant or postnatal and supporting. So women has been very much part of my journey, and it still continues to be my passion to give women tools that they can bring into their daily lives to make baby steps in the direction towards that sense of balance and harmony.
For those that are inspired by Sarah today, where can they find you, and how would they engage some of the work?
Okay, well, the easiest way is to reach out through Thrive Journey. So the website is Thrive Journey. We're planning to put that on a phone app as well. But basically, you can come to my either breathing or Qi Gong classes, or the Yin. The yoga flow is more of a hatha practice, working on moving the blood and lymph, particularly through the pelvis, or the restorative. So I teach classes online through Thrive Journey.
Fantastic. That's the best way to get in touch with Sarah. Incidentally, Katie Brown mentioned Thrive Journey. She's involved with Thrive as well. I think
She
she's
is. She
taken
is.
on
She's
board
our
well.
creative director because
Creative
she's a
director.
journalist.
Yes.
She's a journalist. She has she also has much greater business sense than I've got. So I mean, if people invite me to teach, and basically they do the hard work, and I just roll up and go, okay, let me teach. So I've been very, very blessed to be able to stay focused on the teaching. Whereas I do realize that most yoga teachers today, they have to learn that this is a business, and learning how to promote yourself and learning all of these tools that are behind the scenes these days. It's a huge task. And as I say, I'm I'm 60 plus, right? So there comes a time in your life when you just do the things that make your heart sing, and the others just become a bit too difficult.
Bit too difficult, yes. You've got a great website, you've got a great online presence. I think you're doing quite well, actually. I think one of these.
Oh yes, well I tell you, it's a task,
It is.
because it's not just getting followers. It's about feeding the beast.
Feed the beast.
You have to allocate so much time to it,
Mm,
and you might have 500 followers, and then you want to run a retreat, and you post, and nothing comes back.
mm,
And the amount of work that goes into social media, personally, the people that come to any workshop or retreat are people that know me, right?
interesting.
So it's still that networking that makes the difference. And in fact, another one of our IYTA super teachers is Linda Stevens. She left to go to the UK, and she was creating this enormous menopause online support. But I checked in with her recently, and she said, well, actually, I'm going to keep that on the back burner, but I'm actually going to focus more in the people who are on my doorstep in Farnham, which is just outside London. And
Yeah.
she gets so much joy from working with in-person connections. And she says, actually, I'd rather do that and not earn as much money, because it gives me so much more joy, and it's less hard.
Mm, absolutely. Well, it's more direct. We all have a little different accent, don't we? Little
Yeah, well,
accentuation,
you
more
bring your
direct.
whole. I mean, one of the things that IYTA basically said was, bring you and your things that you are passionate about,
Hmm.
and bring yoga to that.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
it was just such an invitation. It
Isn't it?
was,
Yeah. Isn't that lovely?
mm, yeah, it's about being authentic, isn't it? Really.
Yeah. Yeah.
I this is who I am, and I'm going to teach you. Well, actually, I'm going to teach you my practice, what I know from my own practice and my own heart. Um, and we had full permission to do that in
Mm,
IYTA.
mm,
And to be honest, that's a very yin, very feminine permission to be given. It wasn't structured. It has to be this way.
How did that come about, can I ask, in the IYTA? Who made
Good
that decision? Or
question.
was it
I
just
mean,
law?
I think it was led by women around the kitchen table,
Roma Blair?
right from the beginning.
Yeah.
So, Roma Blair, she basically pulled people around the kitchen table, and that's what it was. So, and, the 60s was a very liberating time. And Roma Blair herself, what a character. I don't know if did you meet her?
No, no,
She
unfortunately.
was a scream. So she came to Singapore. She must have been, about 85. And she was meeting an old flame. And she was dressed to the nines, made up, hair puffed up. She was tottering in high-heeled shoes with a flouncy, gorgeous dress. And she basically, that was authentic Roma Blair. And she was true to herself.
Mm.
And yet, under all of that was this generosity of heart and enthusiasm. And so, even into her 80s, she was really authentic.
And at a time when to be that prolific meant books and it meant pamphlets and brochures and push the message, keep it out there,
Yeah.
and travel,
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
having to go to places to get someone interested in their yoga. Um, I went to the closing circle of the IYTA. There was a chap at the back, you'd maybe know the name, talked of times where you drive into Queensland because someone had an interest in some yoga, so you'd go and teach it to them. You drive to Queensland, teach a yoga class.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
now, lazy sods we are, click a few buttons, and here she is, Sarah in Singapore.
You're right. You're right. But then we had a lot more
Commitment.
time in that
Yeah.
time, and yeah.
Sarah, we could talk all night, I think, but
Yes, I suspect so. But next time, make sure I've got a glass of wine here.
absolutely. Yeah, we can certainly thank you so much for your time today.
It's been my
Oh,
pleasure.
podcast.
Anytime at all. As I say, just ring and say, Sarah, have you got 10 minutes for a chat? Yeah, always up for a chat. All right. Have a good evening.
Thank you. We hope you enjoyed hearing about Sarah's incredible yoga story. And if her words of empowerment inspired, please do not hesitate to reach out to her. Our chat with Sarah is this podcast's way of helping kick off Yoga Week here in Australia. And we hope that you'll be able to be involved in events during the week in your own way. The Yoga Australia website has a number of events that may be of interest. Our final interview in this second series of the Yoga Teachers Talking Yoga podcast will be with Robin Lynch from the Perfect Health Centre and is going to be released next Sunday to coincide with the International Day of Yoga. Like Sarah, Robin has got a lot to talk about, and we know you'll also enjoy this great discussion. We look forward to seeing you then.